let's look at it from the boundary standpoint. What's the line between conviction and delusion? Because we've talked about this in the past where, we someone can have a great idea, and the way that I kind of frame it is passion versus purpose. So there are some people that are very passionate about something and they believe in their convictions and everything else, but it may be delusional if they are trying to force something upon someone that wants to use it a different way. So I
Yeah.
gave like the AI example where I said, okay, well, you've got a great product. Let's talk
Mm.
about use case 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
He was very confident and believed in his convictions for the use case 1, but to not think that there were going to be use cases 2, 3, and 4, to me, was a little delusional. And that's why I highlighted that as a blind spot to go. It's inevitable whenever you have something that's really good that there's going to be someone that wants to see if they can use it a different way.
Yeah. 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 And I think where, when it becomes delusional is
Mhm.
when you come up with an idea and you go out to get feedback because you want to validate your idea. And so the process is, hey, let someone try this out, let someone listen to what your idea is, and then you listen to, their visceral reaction to what you just told them or what
Mm.
you just allowed them to experiment with. And so when you do those two steps and then they're giving you the feedback, well, if you start to ignore their feedback, and again, which can be because of arrogance, possibly it could be for some other reasons, but when you start to ignore this feedback, that's when it borderlines into delusion, particularly when you develop the mindset of, I think this will work. I know this is great. Okay, I'm going to go out and get feedback. It's not what I want to hear, and I'm going to press forward anyway. Right? If all the feedback you've gotten is particularly, and it's feedback from the right audience. The right audience is a prospective
That
customer.
part,
Right.
that part right there.
And,
Yeah.
and, and so if you haven't been able to get one prospective customer to say, yeah, if you bring this to market, I'd actually buy this at a price point you're talking about selling it at, and you're going to continue moving forward without making any changes. That's delusion. And that's not why you go through the process. You go through the process to come up with a better solution, right? You may have an idea. You want to get validation. So you go out to the marketplace. You'll hear things. Hopefully, you'll hear some good, some bad. And it's what do you do with the bad stuff you hear? Well, what you should do is tweak your product or service, so that it addresses those things. I mean, it's great to get that feedback before you actually launch. It's easier to deal with it before you launch than after you launch, right?
Yes.
Um, so you get that feedback, you modify the product or service, you go back to the customer again and say, okay, hey, because think about what this is telling the customer. I asked you for feedback. I heard you because I made modifications to my product or service based on what you told me. I want you to try it again to see if was I listening and do my changes actually address your issue? So that's making your customer feel really good. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, this person actually, one, I think it's great that they took the time to reach out to me and ask for my feedback. But then the fact that they listened to me and made modifications based on what I told them, makes me even more willing to, now if
Yeah.
this really solves my problem, I really want to buy from this person at this point, because this is someone that, if I'm dealing with anyone, regardless of what the product or service is, and I'm a customer, a vendor that's listening to me and is going to make positive changes to the product or services they provide me to solve the problems I have, to make it easier to solve the problems I have. Those are the type of people I want to work with, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing negative that's going to come from that scenario, but not,
Yeah.
again, not going through that process or going through that process partially, getting that feedback, and it's like I don't want to hear that. I know this will work. Well, at the end of the day, you're starting a business to sell to a customer, and if a customer is telling you they're not going to buy the way your product or service is structured, the way it's currently structured, and you're unwilling to make any changes, it's delusional to think you're actually going to get a customer out of that scenario. You're not going to force something down someone's throat.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of things that I wanna circle back to in what you said because they're crucial parts to it.
Yeah.
One, when you're having these conversations, you wanna make sure you're having it with your ideal customer.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you could be having a conversation with someone, and if you're just doing a broad survey, And I'm saying this as the guy that used to do surveys in the mall. I'm saying it as the
Yeah.
guy that used to do the research on cold calls. And
Yeah.
they would give me a list and I would go through the survey questions. And the way that I was able to explain it to people, and this brings it back around to what you were saying, was this is something to make sure that they're seeing to you.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
where I would have these conversations, my thing is first I need to qualify if you're the right person.
Right.
Like, are you someone I should be listening to your opinion on it? Because if you're not the ideal customer, then you're a use case 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
But for the survey, they're trying to figure out this specific demographic, this specific type of person. So if you're getting negative feedback, one, check to make sure that you're having the conversation with the type of person that you want to be able to have
Right.
as your customer, and you're not just doing a broad search.
Yeah.
The other part to that is very much what you were talking about, and that's conveying the importance of I'm not just doing this for my own sake.
Hmm.
I'm creating this to be able to solve a problem, challenge, or struggle that you're having.
Yeah.
So your feedback matters to me because I can bring something to market. And
Yeah.
if I'm a good enough salesperson, somebody's going to buy it.
Right.
But again, that goes back to the irrational confidence. But
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody's going to be able to buy it. But the reality is it going to be the person that you really want buying it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I need to be able to get this feedback because I'm saying I want you as the customer, not
Mhm.
some random person that will buy just to be able to test it out, but I want you as the customer. So I
Yeah.
need your feedback
Right.
so that I can come up with the iterations to be able to tweak it. So the negative feedback is not negative. In my mind, it's iterations that allow me to be able to get the thing the way that I need to be able to have it. So when I go to market, it's not, I still have to figure things out. I have to tweak this, I have to tweak that. It's, I listened to what you said
Yeah.
and I recreated it or I fine tuned it to be able to address specifically you. And
Yeah.
then once you get that person, then that's your brand champion. And then you can start looking at be able to scale everything from there. So yeah, from someone that used to do the research in the mall and do you have time for a survey? The way that I would win people over, and nobody really wants to do those things. And I knew that, but I was a kid. I needed to get a car. I was in California, and the only way I was going to be able to get that car was doing that
Right.
or doing some other things that those weren't going
Right.
to be above board.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
focus over here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had close rates. And I realized very quickly, reading the room, going back to the whole point of this conversation is reading the room. I had to read the room and understand, like, okay, well, who do I think is going to be the ideal customer for this brand?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then once I figured out who I thought that ideal customer was, then it was, okay, I can ask the question. They gave me a series of questions. What I realized is sometimes the series that they gave me and the order they wanted them in wasn't the order that I needed to be able to
Mhm.
ask them in.
Yeah.
Sometimes I needed to lead with, okay, I'll give you an example. There was a young lady I used to see go in the mall with her friends.
Mhm.
Both of us were tall. And
Yeah.
she would go in with her friends, and the friends were able to go into any store and be able to buy whatever they wanted. And she would come back out, and they had a bunch of bags, and she had the same look on her face that I used to have on my face. Where I'm like, I can go in and get T-shirts, but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to go shopping with my friends because none of the stuff that the stores they want to go to, none of the stuff is going to fit me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I saw her doing it day after day after day. And then finally, one time I stopped her and I said, you know what? Um, let me talk to you when you come back out of the store. And when
Yeah.
she came back out, she had that same look on her face. And I was like, here's the survey that I'm actually running.
Yeah.
This is a brand, and this brand is trying to figure out how to service more customers.
Right.
One of the feedback that you could give them is, I'm tired of going into stores and not having people have my size.
Yeah.
You're marketing to all of these other people, but I would actually pay more to be
Mhm.
able to have some to know that there's stores that I can go into that are going to have my size.
Right.
The result of that, and I mean, this is going to date it back, but this is where we started going into big and tall stores.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that feedback that I was able to gather, I went back to the brands and said, here's the questions that you told me to ask.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm really seeing is as something that you can have. This is a lane that you can operate in,
Yeah.
and this is going to be able to help you get more. So it's being able to go back to someone again and talk about the use cases and be able to say, you were looking at use case 1, here's 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
That young lady, she would go into the store and she can never find her size.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once she was able to get that feedback, give that feedback, or once I was able to convey, if you tell them that you would actually pay more
Right.
for someone to actually pay a little bit, like is more material, I
Yeah.
understand I'm gonna have to pay more.
Yeah.
And it's for both taller and shorter people. It's if you know that you're on the outlier,
Yeah.
you're gonna end up paying more for it. But when people feel heard in those situations, they become more loyal.
Yeah.
And that's where there are certain stores I used to, Rochester Big and Tall, I don't even know if it's still around anymore, but I was a loyal customer because I realized those were the type of places where I knew I could get what I needed to be able to get. And they treated me like a normal person,
Right.
not like
Right.
the regular stores where they're like, teenager, I would go into Modell's and some of these stores, they were like, stop bringing your kid in here. All you're
Yeah.
doing is
Yeah.
breaking
Yeah.
the spirit. We don't have his size. You know we don't have his size. we're not going to have his size. Stop
Right.
doing that because you're making us have to say no. And I'm looking at the look on his face. So
Yeah.
I'm bringing all of that back around to be able to say, I figure out who your ideal audience is, who you want as a customer, and then gather the feedback from them. And if you're getting negative feedback and it's nobody that you think that you want as a customer is
Yeah.
giving you that feedback, then that's when you have to start thinking through what product or service that you're trying to bring to market. But if you're getting a mixed bag, then that's where you dig in a little bit more and you start to figure out, okay, well, if these people are saying they don't like it and these people are saying that they do like it,
Mm.
then the follow-up question is, okay, so let me start looking at the people that say they do like it. Why
Yeah.
do you like it? And then you start looking at the people that say they don't like it. Well,
Right.
if I was to make this type of change, what would that do for you? How quickly would you be willing to buy?
Right.
How much would you prioritize it? Those are the follow-up questions that you start to ask.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you the iterations that allow you to be able to move forward. So, bit of a rant, but like, yeah, I
Yeah. Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
triggered for a second thinking back about those types of questions and understanding it's rough, especially when you first start your business. You're trying to figure things out, and then there's the experts that'll tell you you're doing it the wrong way. But is it that you're doing it the wrong way, or is it they only know how to do it one way?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to learn who to listen to and have a certain level of discernment. And it's not just for the experts, but it's also for the audience. So make sure that you're asking the follow up questions from the people that you're getting the information from. Is this someone that I want as a customer, and is this someone that is telling me something because they only know how to do it one way?
Right.
When I potentially don't want to be that person. I want to be my version of what that person is. So
Yeah.
if you use those two things from the expert opinion and then the audience, that'll help you get where you want to be able to go. Okay,
I
so
would
let's
I
let's
would also expand it
mhm,
to so you talked to you'd said survey your target audience, and I don't disagree with that, but I would actually tell entrepreneurs you'll come up with a better product or service solution when you actually expand who you're asking, because you
yeah,
can get
yeah,
great feedback from people you don't think would they won't be in your target audience, but I'll just use the example of children, right?
mm,
So asking children things now you have to meet them where they are. So yeah, they have to understand what you're talking about. You have to explain whatever, I always like to explain things like I'm talking to a 5-year old, but because people ask you to elevate the conversation if you're talking, beneath their level of understanding. But, children have this, it's the why thing
mhm.
where, you ask them a question and it's, why,
I
why,
was one of those kids.
why,
Yes, absolutely.
why,
Yeah,
the beauty of that though is as annoying as that might seem to an adult is sometimes, and again, you have to bring them to a level of understanding where they really understand your product or service. But when they're asking those why questions, actually those iterations of why, because the average adult's not going to ask you that stuff. And but that stuff actually drives you to create a better product or service.
it
Because
can.
kids
Yeah,
will, they don't have any of the jading that adults have, and so they might legitimately ask a question why about something where an adult will say, "Oh, I think that's stupid. That's why I'm not going to ask that." But a kid's not going to they don't think that way. They're just gonna ask
yeah. They
why.
don't have that
And
filter.
that
Yeah,
could be a great, "Oh my god, I didn't even think of that," you know? And I could tweak, my product or service based on that because that's actually a really good question. I wonder why I'm thinking that way, and maybe I shouldn't be thinking that way. And so, so I would expand a little bit when you're going through this vetting and trying to get customer buy-in, who you talk to for feedback, because you can get great feedback from a variety of sources.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I won't touch that at all because I am in agreement. I believe that depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, absolutely.